Yes, we should be live.
Sponsor. Who's today's sponsor?
Boris Johnson. Alhamdulillah.
Why Boris would want to sponsor this, I don't know, Mufsab.
Oh no, he's probably got some links in Turkey, isn't it? He's got some of that Turkish funding.
Oh, yeah, his granddad was a Hafiz or something.
Alhamdulillah.
Alright, so can you guys on YouTube, can you guys see? Can you guys hear as well? If you can, let me know. Right, hopefully.
But I think it's a little too early for that one.
So, Alhamdulillah, I think Ramadan went well, despite all the scares at the beginning.
You're not keeping the other 5 fasts?
Did you spot the meeting, Mufti Sab? Is it over? Is it Eid tomorrow?
What's this up, man? You just wrote Ramadan off? You just wrote it off completely?
It was alright, you know.
It was good while it was here. It's like she's still here.
Allah, good. No comments, guys. No comments. I'm in a kind of spiritual mode here.
Sorry, Mustafa, carry on.
No, you've messed it up, bro. That's it. Okay, so guys, if you guys can see, just put in the comments, inshallah, that you guys can see and hear as well, so that we can, inshallah, get cracking with the topic. For some reason today, I don't know what it is. Actually, you know what? I know what it is. I on the weekend was playing around with the settings on OBS, yeah, and I wasted about 3 or 4 hours on it. Now I've forgotten what settings I set it at, and now I have to retrace all my steps, go through all my history, and look at all the tutorials I watched backwards to find out what settings I actually made.
What were you trying to achieve?
So basically what happened was I was trying to connect my big camera, right, to the what's it, the computer, and the sound, it wasn't syncing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what's happened. Anyway,
Okay.
so
At what point are we going to introduce Zakariya?
right, so them can hear.
Who know? Just those some random brothers joined the podcast.
So alhamdulillah, guys.
It just crashed.
Jazakallah khair, guys, for attending, for coming down, watching us, and we've got our guest today, brother Zakariya, and some of you guys might have seen him recently, mashallah, around some places. I didn't even know you in that interview, you know. Someone sent me that interview, and I was thinking, like, what's this, bro? What's this, man? What's this guy doing on this? And then the next week I saw Sheikh Zaid on there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, where's my invitation? Oh.
Oh, mashallah.
So anyway, so alhamdulillah. So today topic is going to be, guys, about Arabic, and it's going to be not just about Arabic. It's going to be more about the problem with studying Arabic, learning Arabic, the kind of crises that we have at the moment when it comes to people not understanding exactly how to approach Arabic as well. So there's quite a few issues that we're going to be trying to look at today, and obviously we're going to go off tangent as usual, as we do.
Musab, this is quite a balanced podcast, you know.
Why is that?
You've got two examples of how learning Arabic has failed, and you've got 2 examples of how it hasn't failed.
You know, the funny thing is, one of my, my teacher's here, and your teacher's here as well, so he's a failed teacher. Mustafa, you must be a failed teacher too.
So what have you studied from him? Arabic.
Sorry?
When did I study from Zach?
Is my voice still coming out late?
Yeah.
No wonder.
You look like a Chinese kung fu movie.
Okay, you guys carry on talking. I'm going to try to adjust this.
Chinese kung fu movie. One of those ones, that.
Yeah. So yeah, Zach was Zach tried the impossible.
Bengali kung fu movie.
Brother Zakariya, can
Why
I?
did you have to say Chinese?
You know, that's That's true. Could have been a Gujarati kung fu movie,
Maybe.
but they give you dala afterwards. I can say that being Gujarati, ish. What I was gonna say, brother Zakariya, Jazakallah khair for joining the podcast. While Mufti stop sorting out his thing, I wanted to ask you one question.
Go on.
How come you failed with Nav?
See
When you
that?
come to teaching Arabic.
That
That
goes
was
back
my own
to
fault.
the main thing when it comes to studying, right? And obviously, because I'm a teacher, I'm gonna say this: it's the student.
I'm gonna unfriend you on every social
We have
thing.
two examples here of failed students. So really, this podcast should be about you two. Why did you fail in your journey to learn Arabic? It's got nothing to do with me. It's not my fault. Obviously, everything I did.
Shall I start then? Yeah. This is a confession session. This ain't no podcast today.
Everyone confess your sins.
Yeah, father. father in the.
Naveed, you are already like on the last strike, according to some viewers. Right?
Okay.
You're on the last strike. You're on like the border, yeah.
South Africa are here to refute Naveed back into the 19th century. Probably about 18th century, right?
Yeah, now you're
Reason
supposed to
I failed
warm up,
Arabic
man. You have to warm up the audience. You can't go straight in like that. Come on.
Sorry, brother. Sorry, apologize.
Oh, is that what it's
I've
called?
had some complaints.
Is that what it's called?
I've had some complaints.
No complaints for you, man. Nav, come on, man.
You'd be surprised, brother, but that's a different story.
Go on. So what happened with your studying Arabic? I'll tell you why I studied Arabic and why I went wrong. Before we let Brother Zakariya tell us how it's done right.
Okay, what happened with me is I initially approached Zakariya, and he was quite busy at the time anyway, so I kind of convinced him to give me a lesson. But then two of my friends found out that I'm getting Arabic lessons. One of them was a Hafiz, and the other one, like, he did Arabic before and he failed. And I'm thinking that these guys, we're all gonna do it together, and we're gonna become all these the three wise men or something, yeah. And sadly, depending on each other, and we just enjoyed chilling too much. So Ricky would come down and we just talk about life too much and eat samosa and pakore and just eat takeaway and not even study Arabic and not do the homework. Never doing the homework. Number one, we never did the homework. And number two, it was us, bro. It's not Zakariya's fault. And I put my hands up. And I thought, Zach asked me at the beginning, he goes, are you trying to learn Arabic so you can read the Quran properly, or you're learning Arabic so you can speak Arabic? And even though I said I want to learn what's being said in the Quran, I think now that I think about it, maybe I think I tried to run before I could walk. And really, in the back of my mind, maybe I just did want to learn to speak a little bit of Arabic and make my life a bit easier and learn a bit of the Quran. So yeah, that's my confession over.
Allah.
Well,
So were you like kind of like holding on to that for all those years?
now that it's out, I don't feel any better, if that's what you're asking.
I think mine
Um,
probably similar to yours, Nav, is basically I started with Mufti Liaquat smiling and it ended with Mufti Liaquat not smiling. I think it's time and energy and effort, and I think that commitment, it requires commitment.
You don't have time, you're only doing a PhD, you
It's
Okay, so what did you guys find difficult when it came to Arabic?
I think it gets very complicated very quickly, but I don't think it is that as complicated as it sounds. Like when I was in that environment, I was like, whoa, felt a little overwhelmed. But then when I reflected on it, and not just like I'm not learning with Mufti Sahib, I mean like when I started learning first, like of Quran, the Quranic Arabic with Dr. Ibrahim and so on and so forth.
You did Dr. Ibrahim Hassan?
Yeah.
Whoa, everyone's done it with him.
You're a proper failure then.
Now you're like proper awliya compared to him.
I'm like Arsene Wenger. I'm a specialist in failure. When it comes to Arabic, anyway. What I was gonna say, so I started
Any
to get
football
my
reference just goes over my head.
no, I think the way that they were explaining it went over my head, and I think it didn't. It was just one of those things that just made it overcomplicated for no reason. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is how many profiles there are. This is what you got to do, and so on and so forth." But then when I joined the Mufti Saab's class, I think that part of it was made really easy because he made that part of it easy. The part that I failed with that Mufti Saab's class was I just didn't get time, and I think it requires time and effort.
So
And
this
increasingly
is probably
realize
one of the
that
main things. So
sorry.
like, this is probably one of the main things is the amount of commitment that's involved. So like, so if you take a step back, before you decided that you want to do Arabic, what were you anticipating was going to happen? Did you think that you're going to go into this lesson and the clouds were going to part and Arabic was going to descend into your brain or heart? Like, what was going to
I
happen
was
for the 56
I was
days?
hoping it was going to be uploaded somewhere, like you could just stand with the USB at the
One of
back.
those like Matrix kind of things. You sit in a chair and they plug you in and that's it.
I think what I did what I wanted was something that was going to be at a pace that I could take, and I think that sometimes that pace differs for everybody, and I think that that's where you can learn more. So like when you're in a classroom environment, you're working towards the syllabus, whereas for me, I can learn at different. I learn at a slower pace in some times, and I learn at a quicker pace at different times in the year, because of just the way that my timetable run. And I think that because I lacked consistency in that space, and it didn't match up to what was being taught in terms of like if you go to a set class, you're expected to get through a syllabus through a set period of time, and you're taught according to that. But if you don't have that commitment for over the whole duration of the course, then it's going to be difficult for you. So I think where I probably would thrive more is probably in a one-to-one environment, or where I'm able to learn at my own pace. And it's similar. I'm finding that similar to my academic studies as well. That when I'm left to remote learning, I can get through it. So there'll be some weeks where I don't get anything done, and be other weeks where I can get tons of stuff done. So I
Do you
think
find-
that flexibility.
Yeah, I
Do
guess
you
what I'm trying
find
to understand
academic
is
study
because
harder?
loads of people who study part time, they fall into this thing like they'll enroll on a course and they convince themselves that they want to be mini students of knowledge or whatever, or on their way to becoming students of knowledge. But sometimes people are just, it's almost like they like the idea of being a student of knowledge, or they're sold on like this fantasy of what it is to be a student of knowledge. And really, it's just a lot of hard work. It's so much reading, so much memorization, and it's like taking advantage of any kind of resource that you can lay your hands on, any teacher that you can lay your hands on. And it's really just that, like exhausting absolutely everything if you're really committed to learning it. Like learning a language is obviously, it's not a joke. You're learning a whole new language, and Arabic is slightly different to other languages. It's not like Spanish or Italian or French or any one of these other languages. Like, so there's research that says, if you're just speaking on the topic of vocab, if somebody wants to get to a level where they're fluent in English, like comprehending English text, so some studies will say, oh, you need to know about 8,000 to 9,000 odd words, whereas in Arabic it's like something ridiculous, like 25,000. If you want to have near native or native like proficiency. And to put that into perspective, something like Hans Wehr, that dictionary, I think has about 3,000 roots in there. So even that's like not it's not going to get you to native proficiency if you were to memorize that from cover to cover. Do you get it? So learning a language, especially when it comes to Arabic, it just requires work. It's really not. It's not easier or more difficult in that respect than any other language that you can learn. But it's just the commitment side of things. So the reason why I asked the question is because I'm trying to understand the mentality of somebody who enrolls on a course, and the course is 2 years long, and then right at the beginning of the course, they'll start saying, look, you have to do X, Y, Z if you want to achieve. If you want to set out and understand the Quran by the end of this thing. And halfway through, or a couple of weeks later, it kind of falls apart, and then people say, oh, commitment. What were you doing at the beginning of the course? Like, I don't get it. Like, what were you doing at the beginning of the course before you enrolled?
Yelled off.
No,
Yeah.
I think there are a number of kind of things that you can think through. Like, so like when you make a commitment to do something, right? You think you can do it. You go in there with the genuine intent of doing it, and you think to yourself that I'll be able to clear up whatever my life's throwing at me at this moment in time, and inshallah in the future, and I'll be able to focus in on this.
Like, let's be specific. If the teacher says, if you go into the thing, right? If you be specific and we say,
okay,
you're going to have 3-4 hours of classroom time during the week, and the teacher says to you, you have to put in 2 times this outside of class. So you calculate and you're like, okay, do I have 15, 16 hours a week? Yes or no? And then you proceed accordingly, or you make arrangements, you sleep less, like whatever you have to do to make it happen, you make it happen.
Yes and no, right? So I think I agree with you. With kind of like that's how it classically works, and that's how a teacher might envisage teaching. But I think when you live in a way and in a time, right, where knowledge and information, right, is taught at different paces to people, right? And I'm talking like in diverse ranges of academic stuff. Like remote learning is like quite up there. with what people are currently used to doing and used to doing. So so come back to it. When I started the course, right, I was, I thought I had the time. I looked through the time commitments. So I thought, yeah, you know what, I can do this. What happens is that your personal situation and your work situation can change very, very quickly, especially within the environment that we live in at this moment in time, right? So my personal situation, I got 3 kids. My work commitments are that, I got 2 promotions within a very short space of time, and I got loads of responsibilities that came in. So that changes, right? Which means that what you start off with an intent, right, you can no longer do, because then you got your voluntary stuff on top of that, right? So I had a homeless project running at the same time as, work taking place at the same time as family commitments taking place at the same time. And these fluctuate and change. So where you're in week 1 and week 2, or, in the 6 months leading up to doing the course, you think you have that time to commit. But then what happens is your situation and circumstance just changes. And you're 14, 15 hours and no longer you're able to do them. And in that academic environment where you're asked to come to a course once or twice a week, right, and do a number of hours at home, you just think to yourself, you know what, it's just not untenable. I just can't do it in this way. Whereas, like, that was when I started studying it, a few years back, like about 6-7 years ago, when I was like, I'm going to do this. I think now that's changed a lot. Like when you look at stuff that Mufti is doing now, and something that I'm really looking at since I've had another career change, is now I look at that, I think to myself, you know what, I can do this at my own pace. I can do this at my own pace with the pressure of, you know what, you've got to learn all of these things by the next class because the class needs to move on.
I think the other thing is when it comes to something like a lot of people that when they study, I don't think they really understand why they're studying Arabic. Like you can't just say, I'm studying Arabic because I want to understand Islam. You don't need Arabic to understand Islam in today's time. I'm not at the level that general public are kind of expecting. So I think that's another issue.
No, I think that's true. I think that's fair. I think when I wanted to study, it was just for me to understand the Quran. For myself, I wasn't too interested in teaching anybody else. I'm just interested in my own ability to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling us, and how we could connect with what was being said. So that was my interest. But I think kind of like, I think the more flexible courses are now, and I think that probably helps a lot more. So it's not something that I've looked at again. Probably will look at it again in the next couple of months, inshallah. Just because the commitment has changed again, as I was saying.
Well, okay, so when it comes to studying Arabic, what is the why do you want to study Arabic for?
I just want to understand the Quran and
So
what's being
very
really
specifically to
I feel
Quran,
like
yeah?
I can connect more with it. Why did you guys? Why did the rest of the people on here, like Brother Zakariya and Nav, and yourself, Musab, what was it that drove you to want to study Arabic? If you're looking for that why.
Zakariya, you wanna?
I mean, I did it for the same reason, but I didn't let anything come in the way of that. I mean, I sought jobs that would mean that I was able to go out and study Arabic. Like I literally, so I used to work in a law firm. I left that job, and I left that job specifically so I could go. And so at one point I was living in Riyadh for a bit, and then I saved up enough money to spend some time in Egypt. So this is what I mean, where I'm a little bit probably harsh in that. If you really want it, you'll go out and do it. Like I didn't have any sponsors. I didn't have anybody funding me. I wasn't attached to any masjid or any organization. If I wanted to do it, I went out and did it. I took 2 years out of my life and I went and did it. It's as simple as that. So
why did you want to study Arabic for?
So see, I wanted to study Arabic, one, to understand the Quran, and secondly, just to access the tradition, and because I was very, very interested in the Islamic sciences. So from that perspective, I just wanted to study all of these things in a much deeper level.
It was not to order food more successfully at Arabic restaurants.
Yeah, and that.
Falafel. And
Falafel.
couscous.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I noticed one thing. Actually, visiting a couple of different Arab countries, what you study and what people speak are so like worlds apart. Subhanallah. And every Arab, yeah, they've got their own weird little thing in it. Like, not in a racist way. I mean, like, everybody's got their own little. Some people speak fast. Some people speak like they're being a bit more harsh, and some of it sounds a bit more mita. How was it, Ricky? Because you went from one country to another country, and learning Arabic at the same time, and having these influences around you. Because obviously you were speaking Arabic to these other guys as well. Did that affect your learning in any capacity?
Yeah, so there is a challenge when it comes to learning Arabic. When it comes to, if you're specifically trying to learn Fusha, you have all these other sort of, you have exposure to all these other dialects and stuff. But again, I was very, very, very deliberate and very calculated. So when I went to teach, like I taught in a school where there were no other teachers who spoke English. And when I went in the school, like I deliberately befriended all the Arabic teachers. So like in the secondary school and the people who were teaching at the college level, like my mates were just the Arabic teachers. So when I'm speaking to them, I'm speaking to them in Fusha. Even outside, the people I'd hang out with, it's just purely in Arabic. When I went to Egypt, in Cairo, I avoided English-speaking people. Like I wasn't interested in hanging out with them. When the first time I went and I lived in an apartment there, I lived with one of my teachers, and then the other two guys who lived there, they were from like Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, or one of these stands that you've never heard of until you like go to Cairo and realize half of them are migrated out there. Yeah, so again, so like very, very deliberate. I wasn't interested. They're brothers. There's a community in Riyadh, and there's a community of Westerners in Cairo, and they all link up and they play football and they play PlayStation together or whatever they do. So I was never really interested in tapping into that community because I knew, look, I'm here for a short period of time. My money's not going to last forever. I'm not going to be here for years on end. I knew that was never going to be the case, and I was going to come back. So I went there, did what had to be done, and then came back.
All right, I'm gonna start dropping the bombshells in now. Basically, do you think it's better to study Arabic in that way, or is it better, obviously, if you enroll onto a course here in this country that obviously goes hand in hand with an Islamic, like a fiqh course or like a Dars Nizami kind of system? Like which method do you find as being more effective? And that question goes to Mufti and yourself.
Yeah, go on. The Mufti can start with that.
I mean, Zakariya knows, yeah. I'm just gonna speak for a very long time, so I'm gonna let Zakariya speak first of all, and then I'll add to
This
that.
back.
Yeah, that was the bombshell. First of all, like it depends. So if it's just your average Muslim, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need to learn Arabic in the first place. Like you can connect to the Quran and you can connect to the message and the meaning of the Quran just studying in English. And you know what? Actually, Ramadan in lockdown this year has probably been a testament to that. I've been speaking to so many people, and you see online as well, so many people who are listening to the summaries of the ajza of the Quran every night instead of doing Taraweeh. So whether it's Yasir Qadhi or anyone else's. And like people are like, oh, I didn't know Ali Imran is called Ali Imran because of this. I didn't know about the story of Yusuf. I didn't know this is how Adu worship was introduced. I didn't know who this mentioned this mentioned. Like people are so surprised. The Quran is hudan lin nas. It's supposed to be guidance for people, and that can be done in absolutely any language whatsoever. So if you're now saying that you want to learn Arabic and you want to, first of all, if you want to appreciate the Quran on that kind of linguistic level, that's a very, very, very high level. Yeah, that's not phrase book Arabic. You're not going to get that from doing a 9-month course or a part-time thing here and there. That's something that you have to see. This is why I started with the commitment thing. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. And I think part of the problem is probably these courses, the way they market things, or you can be fluent in this much time and that much time. It's all absolute rubbish. There's no way that you're going to get to that kind of appreciation of Quran where you're standing in Salah, in Taraweeh, and you're hearing those words. Like, you might hear Jahannam and start crying because you think, oh, Jahannam's mentioned, I should be crying at this point.
You say, oh, mean when no one's even making it
really being said. Yeah, so for it to really move you like that, it is a long sort of stretch.
But it's about getting those foundational pieces in so that you can then go on some like your own journey of self-study as well to some extent with scholars around. But it's just getting off that foundational basis.
I don't know. I feel like the more that I see how low the religious or the Islamic literacy is in the general public, to put this massive hurdle up right at the beginning and say a prerequisite to all of this for most people, if you really want to appreciate the Quran, is to understand Arabic. I think that's way too much of a hurdle, and it's creating a massive barrier and obstacle for people. Like people just need to sit down and they need to read the Quran from cover to cover. That's what they need to do. It's the very first thing. read it in English and understand what this message is. Understand how many times the same themes keep coming up and up and up. And when
Which
you can implement
translation,
those into
brother?
your life, then we can speak about things like Arabic and stuff on a deeper level. There's so much to unpack here and so much to talk about, inshallah. But I'll pass over to you.
Subhanallah. Anyway, so you see, I mean, I went through when I studied. I went through like the really kind of traditional, in the sense as in memorization, gardans, learning stuff. Basically, the way I studied Arabic was, it was more about memorization, and then you're expected to understand at some later point, right? There's some like 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line point where you're going to all of a sudden understand it all. And this method is a very difficult method, yeah. I don't know how I got through it. But, you know, I remember that one of the first times I was studying, I couldn't understand this book called Nahw al-Wadih. And it was taught to us in Arabic, and it was Arabic. So there was a guy in the 7th year. I was in the 1st year. This guy was in the 7th year. He was from Tajikistan, talking about stans.
Sorry, can you just translate what an-Nahw al-Wadih means?
An-Nahw al-Wadih means the clear Nahw, clear Arabic grammar. So one day he called...
On that point, sorry, I remember once we studied a text in Balagha. It was the first one that I studied, and it was called Al-Balagha al-Muyassara. And then by the time we finished it, the Ustad was like, it should be called Al-Balagha al-Mu'aqqada. Like, it was so difficult. Like, difficult Arabic as opposed to easy Arabic. Easy Balagha, sorry. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
So there was this guy, yeah, and this guy was from Tajikistan, yeah. And he saw me, yeah, and he knew a bit of Urdu. I knew a bit of Urdu. So he called me, he goes to me, are you understanding the lessons? And I said, no. He goes, come to me every day in my class, and for half an hour I'll explain the lesson to you. So this guy, I would sit with him, and in Urdu, he would explain to me, right, I'm learning Arabic, and in Urdu, a language I don't know, he's explaining to me how to understand an Arab language, which I'm being taught in. It's like this kind of circular sort of like, circular kind of argument here. Like this is going round and round. That was very difficult. The other way I studied was I would converse with a lot of the students in Arabic. So like when we used to go to our rooms, when we used to play football, like you pick up all these, like side words, right? That, you don't really intend to learn. But, khali, yeah? Stuff like, sakkir al-bab, sakkir. Which is more of a kind of like a modern sort of Arabic word rather than classical, even though it has classical connotations. And once what they done was, students done this to me, the elder students. They called me in the room, they sat around me, and they said, speak Arabic, go on, speak Arabic. Because, it was like, imagine like a freshie, someone from abroad just come over now, and they're just learning, and they're like really passionate, they want to explain something really complex to you, but their vocabulary in the English language is like 10 to 15 words. So that's what I was like. So I would be sitting there and I would come out with like some strange sentences, right? Instead of saying like I am doing this, I would say he is doing this, and and they would all laugh. They would look at each other laughing. They were Africans, yeah, because a lot of Africans study there and they knew Arabic from before. I was saying TK, laugh today, yeah. We're gonna see who's gonna laugh tomorrow.
Already roots of knowledge one day.
We're gonna see who's gonna laugh tomorrow. So that was my second way of me learning, right? And alhamdulillah, I got really good friends with this Tunisian guy. And this Tunisian guy would just like, he only knew Arabic. That's it. He doesn't even know Urdu. He sits in the class. He doesn't even understand what the teacher's saying. He comes to other students afterwards. He goes, what was he on about? Yeah. So I learned through that. And then he goes, the third way I learned was, I learned on the side. I used to study on the side privately with people. So I remember once I studied with this guy from Gaza, Palestinian, who like left Pakistan, who came to Pakistan because of the Tablighi Jamaat. And at a really young age, and he stayed there. And then, he can't go back. So this guy taught us as well. On the side, he would teach us some Arabic as well. And then another was, we learned it through, I learned it through a private teacher I used to have. And he used to teach me through Pashto. So he used to teach me Arabic through Pashto. So I learned Arabic, through Urdu, through English, because we had one teacher who was from South Africa. Through English, through Pashto, and then at one stage I started learning Farsi, so through Persian as well. Khulasa, right at the end of the journey, I realized an important thing. I realized that.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, what was that?
I don't know what Altaf was doing there.
Was that like one of those kind of like the bloopers, yeah? Altaf's bloopers. So anyway, so what happened basically was that I eventually realized that, look, teaching Arabic this method is not going to be an optimum way of teaching the language. So I got in touch with this guy, and it's a random kind of thing. His name was Dr. Rizwan Ali Nadawi, and he was the one that inspired the 17 lessons that I have on my channel. He was the one that inspired me to do that. Right? He said to me, you know what, you need to change this whole system, because the madrasa system of teaching Arabic is a total mess, right? A lot of people, when they study Arabic, what I find is they ask you, what book shall I study, but they don't realize you only study a certain number of books if you want to become an expert in Arabic, like a really high level expert, like in our terms, like a PhD kind of guy. A lot of people don't need that. They just need the basic Arabic rules just to get them going, and then themselves they can translate. In fact, I even explain this to a lot of students. Like, if you have an Arabic text, let's say an Arabic text, and you know what each word like literally means, you got like a whole list of keywords, and you know what they all mean, you can translate a lot of it on your own. Right? You're gonna get stuck in some places because you won't know, for example, like, I know what this word means, but I don't exactly know what it refers to. Is it a man or woman? Is it something like that? I mean, that's where you need grammar. So I personally think that this is the way forward in teaching Arabic.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mufti Saab. Obviously, that you'd normally read, but you wouldn't be able to pick up like things like sarcasm and rhetoric speech and stuff like that.
Oh no. That's like later. That's like if you want to study later. Yes. So that's what I've seen. I mean, in a lot of people, when they come to me, they want to learn Arabic. I've seen a lot of students who've been studying Arabic for like 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and they're still like stuck in the mud. Like, they don't know what they want to do with it, and they think they haven't learned enough. And I always just say to them, look, you've learned so much now that you can start writing your own essays, and you can start translating, small books on your own, and show it to a teacher, get it corrected, and he goes, that's it. You don't need to study like really advanced Nahu books, grammar books.
I always have found it a bit odd when I've met somebody that's like, completed his Alamiya course, but he doesn't speak Arabic. I always thought that's a bit odd and strange. So I think that kind of sums up, and it kind of proves what you guys are talking about, really. It's almost like a process that you have to follow in order to learn the other sciences of Islam, but you might not just grasp what is meant to be the foundation in the first place. And like Zakariya was saying, sometimes it doesn't even need to be the foundation. If you need to learn your basics of Islam, like if somebody accepted Islam like tomorrow, like it's too much to ask to like learn everything in Arabic for you to totally understand your religion properly. You could do that from the English language.
Forget the guy who just became Muslim yesterday. I'm talking about the guy who's been Muslim or practicing for 20 years, and he's still trying to memorize yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna. I'm struggling on there, and he hasn't learned the Quran or he doesn't, not memorize. I'm saying he's not so familiar with the Quran that he can just pick it up and he knows what the message is talking about. So we're not saying. So just to clarify something, we're not saying that. One of the problems when you start learning Arabic is if you tell somebody you're learning Arabic, they'll be like, oh, so that means you can speak Arabic. Speaking as a language skill almost is at the front of everyone's mind when it comes to having competency in a language. So the way that typically your Arabic lessons are taught, or your Arabic courses are taught, is there's not too much of an emphasis on speaking, and there's a reason for that, because ultimately the objective is to be able to tackle texts. Now, the problem that we find in a lot of madaris is they've gone to almost like another extreme, to the point where speaking and listening and in fact all of what they call productive skills. So receptive skills are like reading and listening, and then your productive language skills are writing and speaking. So writing and speaking are near enough like non-existent, and there's almost just a lot of reading and a lot of translating going on. So the focus is very, very limited. So a lot of the research, what it says is, when you're starting out, you do need to have a little bit of a holistic approach. So you see the reading, the writing, the speaking, and the listening, it all kind of feeds into each other. Yeah, so if you're learning just abstract rules and all you're doing is translating sentences, all you're testing there is reading and translating.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? You know, one of the things that just came to my mind, one of the things, in fact, is, you know, I found too much learning Arabic, like too much kind of going into the kind of nitty gritty of Arabic. It, 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 um, it impedes on a person understanding the Quran. And I've seen this happen so many times, because what happens is when when the Sahaba, when they received the Quran, they never kind of like revised their Arabic. Like they never kind of studied Arabic to understand the Quran. It was natural to them, right? They never probably even thought of how important knowing Arabic is to understand the Quran, right? You know, to the average Arab at that time. But then what happens is when you study Arabic, what I found is that when students want to go to the Quran, what they want to do is they want to break down the Quranic ayats in a grammatical way. So if you have two people, one who kind of knows Arabic really, really well, right? And then one who's kind of like learnt it, right? From A to Z. The guy who's learnt it A to Z, when he looks at the Quran, he'll be looking at more everything in grammar. Whereas the other guy, he'll oversee all of that. Yeah, he'll overlook all of that, and then he'll go straight to the content of the Quran, what the Quran's actually saying. And so you find this a lot, for example, like people who graduate and they don't know Arabic. Because, I mean, Zakariya, you mentioned this as well to me last time as well, and I kind of like thought about this before, but I just didn't have it at the top of mind, which is a lot of people don't realize most of Arabic books that are written for an Arab audience. Most grammar books, I would say 90% of grammar books are written for an Arab audience. And so when you're a non-Arab and you're trying to study an Arabic book that's written for Arabs, right? It's like, for example, a book that's written for people who know Urdu, right? And then you got someone who is English trying to translate that book into English to try and learn, Urdu that's, designed for someone who speaks Urdu. And then what happens is it affects the way they think as well. So when they look at the Quran, right, they won't see a verse and they won't see the depth of the verse. They'll just see, oh, you know what, this is a mubtada, this is a khabar, where's the muta'alliq, what's connected to this, and how long is the jumla, what kind of jumla is it? Does that make sense? Now, this happens a lot. For example, like, when someone's, I remember this when we were studying fiqh, we there's a famous sort of like opinion in usul fiqh attributed to Abu Hanifa that he says you don't have to read the Quran in Arabic in salat. Yeah. So it's attributed to him. So many say that it's not like it's not something which has been verified that his opinion, but it's attributed to him that when you're praying salat, he says you don't have to read in Arabic. You can read in your native language. Reason being, like later Hanafis have said, is Abu Hanifa saw that people were so preoccupied with the Arabic sciences that it took them away from what the Quran was about, the spirit of the Quran, which is to kind of delve into the language, understand what your Lord is saying to you. And they were like, some guys were like praying salat and think, Subhanallah, look, Allah's used the ism fa'il over here. Allahu Akbar. Imagine he had used the ism maf'ul over here. Yeah, Allah has used a verb over here. And this will happen seriously. Like, you think it's funny, but it happens. Guys will pray in Taraweeh and they'll be thinking more about the grammatical balagha breakdown rather than, having a humble, heart. Knowing Arabic doesn't humble you. Knowing balagha doesn't humble you. It doesn't like increase your spirituality. Your spirituality is something else. Yeah, it might enhance it in certain ways sometimes, but that's what I found. I personally found that. So yeah.
Ataf, you've been too quiet, man. Say something, please.
I think it's interesting, and it's interesting that you have different takes on when people come to accepting and learning Arabic. Like, Brother Zakariya was talking about having the time to take that time out of your life to make those commitments. And completely, transforming what it is that you're currently doing, and I think that makes sense and that's important. But I think it also is equally as important to. So when I just look at my own thing, right? When I was looking to study, it was just an enhancement, a spiritual enhancement. I would probably put it as, where you got to a point in English where you just like, it's not doing anything for you English wise, in terms of like. You feel like you're ready or you're wanting to move on to another phase, and I think that when Mufti Saab was talking about it just now, and he was saying kind of like how certain people learn Arabic, when he was talking about how he learned Arabic and how certain people learn Arabic, I think the thought that always goes through my mind is how do you, I think this is a question, right, to both of the scholars on the call is, do you think, Arabic scholars at least, bro, man, come on, man. And I was talking about Naveed anyway.
I thought so. My beard is nowhere near scholarly length.
Allah.
I'm probably going to get criticized.
Zakariya, we don't have to bring spirituality into this year. We don't have to bring taqwa into here.
Growing a beard isn't hard. You just gotta like not trim or shave it.
You know, I mean, if you think about it, I think a lot of people already know a lot of sort of like Arabic sort of words anyway. So if you were to add those words together, I think they're speaking half Arabic anyway. MashaAllah, astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah, la hawla la quwwata illa billah.
But we've
There's
hijacked
a
certain
couple
terms.
of things I wanted to say.
Can I ask a question if possible?
Yeah,
The
can I
question was-
because I wanted to just make a comment on what was already said before it goes.
Sorry, Karen.
So what Mufti Liaquat was essentially saying is, like I'm currently occupied with a lot of research into second language learning, and especially learning language as learning Arabic language for specific purposes, like learning it so that you want to study the Islamic sciences. And essentially, what Mufti was saying is that what happens is, and you have two sort of broad approaches to learning language. You have one which is focused on form, and you have another which is focused on meaning. So focus on meaning is where you're getting a taste of the language. You're just trying to feel it, get a flavor for it, just speak. You don't need to break you don't need to break certain sentences down or understand grammatically what's happening. You just need to be able to communicate in a way that's effective. So even if the person doesn't understand what you're saying, or even if you're reading and you're not reading and all the vowels aren't 100% correct, but you kind of get what's going on, you can follow a narrative, that's fine. Form, on the other hand, is like, very atomistic. You have to absolutely break every single thing down. Now, like Mufti Sahib was saying, what happens is when you do that from day one, and that's all you've been doing, it almost wires the brain to the point where no matter what text you pick up now or whatever you hear, that process is happening in your mind, and it can impede people's comprehension in the long run. And you see this a lot with students as well, even when they're in madrasa and they get to like year 5 or 6, they're like daunted because they don't want to read a text. It's almost like super scary reading a text. It's like, oh my God, I have to pick up this text. Look, it's like 45 pages. Oh my God, like that's going to take me 4 years to do mutala of this book. So to prepare a text is like this huge mammoth task. Why? Because you haven't truly understood a text unless you know how to do like tarkeeb of the whole thing cover to cover. And that's kind of like what happens with the students. So there needs to be a balance between these two things. But saying, I think there definitely has to be a focus on form, because if you're looking to understand things at a higher level, then later on you definitely will be focusing on
Okay, so Zakariya, just to kind of answer Altaf's question. Yeah. What was the question again?
So there's two questions, right? First part of the question was, most people, right, that are watching this podcast, right, that will be thinking about the fact that they want to learn Arabic, and the specific reason that they want to learn Arabic will probably be one, that they want to understand, they feel that they want to enhance or become closer to God as a result. And I think you started to touch on that before in terms of saying like learn it in English. What kind of steps would you advise them?
If I just stop you there, to me this is the reality of it. I mean, this is not. I'm not saying this to kind of say that someone is wrong, or they're not understanding. Allah knows best if someone understands or not. But a lot of people who have studied from a madrasa system, I know for a fact, I would say maybe 70% of them understand the Quran better. Like when I say better, in the sense they can relate to it better if they read it in their own tongue, translation, than if they read it in the Arabic language. I've seen many like this. It's like, and the reason being is because the translator, he's gone through the effort of trying to make the Quran resonate with the reader. Does that make sense? So a lot of people think, what's going to happen? They think, all ulama, subhanallah, they just listen to the Quran and their hearts, what's the ayah? إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Yeah, they automatically think every graduate, every alim a'apa understands the Quran far, right? And I know there's Arabs who listen to the Quran and will cry in salat, and they hardly know any grammar. Yeah, so crying in salah doesn't mean you understand the Quran more. Yeah, and knowing Arabic doesn't necessarily mean you understand the Quran more. So to know Arabic, there's a different kind of route. There's a different path. And when someone's gone in that path for a long time and looks back and then realizes, okay, I made this mistake when I was studying. I should have done this. And I personally think, I mean, I've seen a lot of people. I've seen guys who, like, there's a husband and wife. When we were studying, there's a Maulana and his wife was an Alima, and they would speak with their child only in Arabic. Yeah, a little girl, and she would come in the room, and she would like say little cute like Arabic things. And once she said something, I didn't know what it meant. Like, like when you're studying, like when we study Arabic, we kind of generally study like classical Arabic, so we're not used to the modern words. So look at the kind of modern words. She came out. She said, what did she say? She said farasha. Farasha. And I think farasha, what's that? Farash. I was thinking like a moth. So moth is also called farash. And then she was saying toothbrush. So basically, like in Pakistan, they had this system where they had nursery in Arabic, and then they had primary school in Arabic, and then they had... So the kid would come home, mom and dad speaking Arabic with the kid, and then in the school, like they're learning from a young age Arabic. So it was like Arabic became so second nature to them that they didn't know Arabic because they were studying it. They knew Arabic like they know their mother tongue. So I think, for a lot of people, they assume that they're going to learn Arabic and it's going to make them more pious, or it's going to connect them. Abu Jahl knew so much Arabic.
Musab, I think the question that I would say is that for people who are watching this podcast, and probably modify it slightly, is that what would you two recommend is a path that if somebody's going on to seek knowledge, right, that they go on? Because I think you touched on it. I think Brother Zakariya touched on it in terms of when you were saying, like, starting to relate to text in English first and foremost.
Yeah, so I mean, just so we don't, because it does sound right now that we're saying there's no point learning Arabic unless you're just going to go over.
No,
So,
on roots of knowledge, you will learn the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and get this background. Yeah, we need some new registrations on roots of knowledge, right? But what we're saying is, right, roots of knowledge have cracked.
Yeah. It's the only place in the entire world.
With 17 lessons will make you proficient.
Exactly. In 17 lessons.
You know what? Speaking of conspiracies, I think in the future people are going to come and say, you know why it was called 17? Because subhanallah. Yeah,
COVID-19 take away 2 is 17.
Wait. I have to bring back the song.
No, but because I do agree. It does sound like you're saying, like, yeah, forget Arabic if you're not serious about it. Just go read a good Martin Ling's book and you'll be all right. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I get it.
So I'm not saying that. So let's give some optimism, man. So before actually I even went abroad, right? So I started studying here. So I didn't do that thing. I think the main thing is you can exhaust your local resources. That's the first thing you need to do. So whilst you're here, the first thing I did is I just did a weekend course like a lot of people do. So I actually studied the Medina books 1, 2, and 3. But whilst I studied the Medina books, and this is what I mean about like really, really taking advantage of your local resources. This is going back years, but there was a masjid in Cape Hill, and they had an imam there, and the imam was like he was staying in the masjid, Afghan masjid, and he had loads of time on his hands, right? So I was on like the third Medina book or something, and I've heard about this Qasas al-Nabiyin. So I used to go to him and read Qasas to him, like just before Dhuhr or something. He was like free at that time, and I'd go to him every single day. And then there was another Maulana who I used to just pester him like 15 minutes at a time here and there. Whenever I got a chance, I used to read Fiqh al-Muyassar to him. And this is like whilst I'm doing the third book, or I just finished the third book. So like I'm trying to engage with text, and I'm listening to stuff online. I'm listening to stuff with subtitles. So this is what they call this input. So what you want comprehensible input. You want input that you can potentially understand in Arabic. So I'm trying to maximize the amount of exposure that I have to Arabic. It's artificial because I'm not in that environment. Yeah, but still, what's happening is.
Ricky, sorry to interrupt you, bro. Sorry to interrupt you. While you were doing this, were you watching programs or news and stuff like that in Arabic as well?
No. See, because that's quite difficult. What you have to do is, the reason why I said comprehensible is it needs to, in the stuff that you're reading, or the stuff that you're listening to, it has to be at a level where you'll be able to understand it. Now, if you go from something like Medina books all the way to like Al Jazeera, like it's not going to happen. There's too much of a massive jump there. Whereas if you're listening to a talk on I don't know, Abdul Qadir Jilani or something, just a 40-minute like reminder, and there's subtitles there, and you're listening. So I'd like listen, and then every now and then like look at the subtitles, and then it's almost like what he's saying is matching up the Arabic, and I'm listening to it, I'm hearing it, I'm absorbing it, like loads of pausing and loads of thinking about what he's saying. But then eventually, like you do that with a few videos, you don't need somebody to speak with. What I'm saying is you don't need anyone else for that. When it comes to reading and when it comes to listening, when it comes to things like writing, you're not dependent on anyone else. A lot of the time we big up the whole speaking thing. The main problem with speaking is, look, you don't have people to speak Fusha with. It's as simple as that. It's hard enough to find somebody to speak Fusha with when you're in Arab speaking countries. But these other skills, you can develop them to a very high level if you just organize yourself and you make the time. Again, it's a commitment thing. It really is just a commitment thing. So like I spent time reading, I'd rinse anyone that I could get a hold of, and then I was listening to stuff in Arabic. And it was easy kind of stuff. And then I remember at one point, there was a series online. It was Ajrumiyya in Arabic. And the person who was teaching it, he did it in a very, very, very basic way. So bearing in mind now, like I've understood all of these rules. Like I know these rules. I've learned them in English. But I'm just listening to him explaining it in Arabic. Just the benefit from the listening. So I'm not listening to something new. The content is completely familiar to me. So likewise, one of the first things I listened to was like a series on the Seerah. So I've read the Seerah. When he's mentioning certain incidents and when he's mentioning companions and mentioning these events, like I know them. So I think one of the key things is when you start reading, when you start listening to stuff, listen to stuff that's familiar. Like don't stress yourself out too much. You don't want to be engaging with content. All you want to be doing is just getting used to listening and absorbing as much of the language as possible. So that's like a tip. So these are things that you can do, and these are things that I did whilst I was here, and I was doing it part-time, and I had a full-time job, and I had my house and mortgage, and like everything that all people sort of have, the excuses that they tend to throw up.
So I'm not using this as an excuse, but do you sometimes feel that maybe somebody that might have accepted Islam speaks a totally different language? Their journey to learning Arabic is different to somebody that's basically Indo-Pak and all his life he's been pronouncing the letters wrong, etc., and he has to like start from scratch. Is there a difference?
You mean Zwalin?
Yeah, well, Zwalin.
I don't think Zwalin is the biggest obstacle to people learning Arabic. Even if you're mispronouncing letters, it doesn't matter. There's people out there who speak fluently and they write and this, that, and the other, and their tajweed is right off, but they're still able to do it.
Is it an advantage or a disadvantage knowing something like Urdu before learning Arabic? What would you say? Do you think it's an advantage?
I don't know Urdu, but I'm trying to learn Urdu right now. And knowing Arabic.
क्यों आप क्यों सीख रहे भाई? उर्दू क्यों सीख रहे?
Refutation करने के लिए.
What do you think these books are for? I'm gonna pile them up like this high, my head poking through the middle, and start blasting some people I don't agree with.
Zakariya, it's only because you want to be able to sing Urdu and teach at the same time. Aya, farmaya. You want to be like that guy.
He wants to know, that Nasheed, sweet Medina, very lovely. He wants to know what the Urdu part means. That's why he's learning Urdu.
There's no Urdu in that, Nasheed. What are you talking about?
Is there not?
No.
Okay. Well, if the English was so bad, it sounds like Urdu then, basically.
Sweet.
Yeah,
no,
so...
What was the one that we listened to in
Which
the car
one?
that one time? It wasn't Sweet Medina, it was another one.
Oh, bro. Forget it. I can't remember, man. If I remember it, bro, I'll mention it.
You know what they say, bhai? You know what they say? The barakat you get in Urdu, you don't find in English, bhai. Allah.
After Arabic, this is just a general question. I know on the subject Arabic. Which other language are the most Islamic books written in? Is it Farsi? Or would you say something like Urdu?
I have no idea. See, the reason why I say that I have no idea is because so many books have been written by different civilizations. So, for example, you've got so much books that were written by Sindhi scholars. You probably haven't heard of them. Sind was actually considered to be a hub of ilm before, in India, before it kicked off in India. Sind was considered to be
ilm or film?
Both.
Ilmi film.
Ilm, film. One's in the books, one in the TV. So I mean, so you got Sindh. Then you got like places like Turkey. Yeah, in Turkish, there's so much, books that are written in Turkish language, and then you got what else? Farsi, and then in Farsi, there's several languages in Farsi. It's not one language. You got loads of different sort of like sub languages within Farsi, and then you got like, and then Farsi is like, the Tajiki, the South Russia, they speak Persian, but they've got a different sort of like type of Persian they speak. And they're writing like that, Russian backward R and all that kind of stuff. They have that language, and the Malaysians have their own. So it's difficult to say.
Someone once said to me, if you don't know Arabic and you're a Muslim, it's like you're living like a guest in your own home. Do you think the statement is true, or is there an element of truth to it?
Tell them to do 17 lessons, 17 lessons Quranic Arabic.
I'm just throwing anything in your direction, obviously.
Then I'll tell you guys. I actually came across a really good thing. Learning. There was a guy once I met at this symposium that we had, Scholars Symposium. So I was making tea, and he said to me, teaching kids. How do you teach them? So I said, I'm not a Maktab teacher, so I don't really kind of know. He goes, well, what I do with my son, I used to put him in the Maktab, then I took him out. Then I started teaching him on my own, and then I started explaining every sabak of his. I started explaining the meaning of it. And this little kid picked up the understanding of the Quran. Like, he couldn't understand Arabic thoroughly, but he understood the Quran. Every time he reads, he has this kind of like imprinted understanding of the Quran. And this was actually something I saw in Pakistan. In Pakistan, what they do is they've got this up north in Pathan areas. They've got this kind of tradition. What they do is they read Quran in translation. Yeah. So my auntie, she's done the whole Quran in Pashto translation. You can tell her to put her finger on anywhere in the Quran and start reading, and she'll translate it for you. But she won't know.
They do that in a melodic.
Yeah. Yes, in a melodious way they do it. But if you say to her, for example, like, what does this word mean? She won't know. Does that make sense? So it's like, this is what I'm saying about the problem with learning today. Arabic has become like this. It's like this parroting Arabic language, and they are like, transplanting it onto the Arabic, and so they've got the meanings already in their head, and they're just like kind of using that as a kind of like template.
Is that more to do with the way that it's taught than Mufti Saab?
I definitely think so.
That's different. Like, I think Altaf mentioned earlier that about like spiritual upliftment. Like, one of the reasons why people want to read the Quran and feel the sense of sort of whatever spirituality, whatever that means. But they can't just do that. They can't just
You're a robot.
I can tell which book you read about that. I can tell which.
Fine, mate. Do you know what I mean? Don't worry about this Arabic stuff.
Too much Al Jazeera there, bro.
Mufti Saab, Brother Zakariya, sometimes he's sounding like you're celebrating the 17 lessons on roots of knowledge. Brother Zakariya is like, guys, just watch the English version.
No, just watch the Urdu version of the English version of the Arabic version.
Allah.
Mufti Saab, just because that worked when you were studying, right? It's not going to work for everyone. No, what I was going to say is, look, if you're doing this thing, and there are courses like this where you go through the salah, or you go through the short surahs, and like you said, they point out the meaning of each of the surahs. So like, you might be reading Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil, and then what comes to mind is, you're like, okay, fil and this, that, and the other. So you can put it together, so you have this kind of like, what you're reading, you're familiar with what you're reading. Likewise with the Fatiha and the salah, the surahs that we read all the time. That's not language learning.
What's that?
That's something completely different.
I think we should check the comments as well, because we're going to wrap up like shortly, and then inshallah let's just try and get some comments out of the way as well.
Okay, so what about this then, Zakariya? What do you think about like teaching Maktab system? What do you think? I mean, we've had a chat about this kind of stuff before, and I really think that Maktab systems need to really be developed. I think, especially we're living in a society now where I taught Maktab for about 2 or 3 years, and one of the things that I found in Maktab systems was, number one, they don't have Arabic. Like majority of them, 99.9% of them, they do not teach Arabic per se. As in, it's not a language, it's not taught as a language, it's taught as just, you're able to, link letters together. It's just a technique of teaching people how to link letters together. So, there was a Maulana, I remember when I went to Masjid Aqsa, he's from London, I don't know, he might be watching, Maulana Abdul Rahman. And he basically, what he done was, he lived in a predominantly Somalian community. And he says, what we started was, I started this method of teaching the kids in Maktab Arabic. And I slowly began to implement, or apply it to stuff like Qasasun Nabiyin. And he goes, now the kids, when they reach the age of 14 and 15, they're able to read Arabic, and translate a good amount of Arabic. They might not know the rules, but they can read and recognize sentences and translate and understand words. So I found this method that was very, very useful, because if you got a kid and he's in Maktab for average of 4 or 5 years, and he comes out and he can only, think about it, 10 hours a week on average, he only comes out with the ability to be able to read Arabic. And now they've introduced like supplementary sort of like Islamic topics, which even in most places they're not taught at the level of a child. If you think about it, schools have so much sort of like training of how to teach children, of pedagogy and all that. And a lot of the maktab, they don't even think about this being something which is, obviously there's lots of things that kind of add to that, which is, inadequate pay, and then facilities, and then, overcrowding in the classes. Right? All of these things play a factor, definitely, without a doubt. But I'm thinking about it in the long term. You got kids that are growing up and they have like doubts in their religion. Yeah, they got like shak in their religion, and they don't know where to go to. The only place to get access to is, roots of knowledge, and to go online, basically, online platforms where they can get access to scholars. So it's like you're creating this kind of like, in a sense, I would say, I see it like this: you're creating a dependency upon scholars in a thing they don't need dependency on. Like there's lots of things that I think youth can actually understand about Islam, and they shouldn't need to have to go to scholars about everything. Like if a guy can read Quran on his own, 70% of the questions that I get asked will get answered by them just reading the Quran. Yeah, and okay, you need to ask a scholar about questions which are tricky questions. Yeah, questions which obviously are very technical, and I understand that. But what I'm saying is this dependency has been created now. You have got this dependency of, right, you have to go to a scholar for everything. Yeah, for nikah, and they kind of use it as a kind of like, it's like one of those things that, for your nikah you have to go for the azan and iqamah, you have to go for a scholar. It's like a child's born, you have to phone a scholar to tell him to come down to give the azan and iqamah to your child
in the maternity ward.
Yeah. And it happened to me once 2 o'clock at night. I had a phone call, right? And I understood, they don't know better. That's what they've been brought up to think, that only the scholar.
In English.
And that's it.
God is great.
Allah is great.
God is great. You alright?
So that's what happens basically. I think that Arabic needs to be studied. I think Arabic needs to be studied, but people need to be told the limits of what they're studying. It needs to be mapped out in such a way, I think. And the idea of me doing roots of knowledge was this, that long term, over 20, 30, 40 years, there needs to be this kind of a way of anyone can get access to studying all of Arabic. And it needs to be, I don't want it to be dumbed down, but it needs to be taught in such an easy way, like muyassar way, right? Like you were saying.
You said it's going to be easy, and you said you're going to teach it over 40 years, so I'm just trying to work it out.
Yeah, well, easy doesn't mean quick.
Easy, you didn't say the time was easy.
It's not fast food. So that's why I think when it comes to Arabic, I'm not against Arabic. I think people should learn. I personally think Arabic, this sounds very sort of like cheesy. 17 lessons, right, or its equivalent, should be known by all maktabs. All maktabs and all, so basic like madrasa systems, they should know something similar. Right, so at least
just so that we're clear, like what would that overall achieve? Like what would be the outcome of what?
Okay, so what it would achieve, number one, it would achieve confidence in a tradition. Because see, when you study a language, you're not just studying words. What you're studying is like a philosophy. You're studying a mindset. You're studying, how things are. You look at things in a different way, right? And like Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, the famous saying, that a person who learns a language learns character, learns religion, and sharpens their intellect. Because you got to think about things in a different kind of way, right? Like you say stuff in Urdu, but you don't say those same things in English. There's a context for it. There's a time for it. Everything makes sense. And a lot of the times when people have these kind of like doubts in Islam, how can the Prophet ﷺ have said this? How come the Quran has said this? If you kind of explain it to them in a kind of very linguistic way, right? Like, look, this is how language works. Language works like this. Certain things are said in a time which have a certain meaning, and then in a later time, people don't take that meaning. There's like metaphors in a language, and I'll give you an example. One of the examples, this is where a lot of people they make big mistakes, right? Like, have you heard a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ saying that women are deficient in their intellect? Have you come across this?
Let me write this one down 1 second.
Yeah. Now you see, this is a mistranslation. This is like a clear mistranslation of the hadith, and I understand why it's a mistranslation, because what the translation are trying to do is take naqisat al-aql, and they're trying to literally, in our time, in our language, trying to really explain each word as it is without understanding how Arabs would say such things. So because of this, now people start coming out with these kind of maybe feminists or others would use this as ammunition and say stuff like, well, look, we told you the religion was all about misogyny, and this is the kind of stuff they're coming out with. So I think if people start learning language, it will help a lot in confidence with the tradition. And then on top of that, like Zakariya was saying, look, if there's a guy who's really passionate about, or a sister who's really passionate about learning the Quran, and they learn a few words, I've seen it happen with my own students. Like, they'll send you messages saying, I cried today for the first time. I read the Quran and I could understand in a sentence like 90% of what was being said on my own. And that's a very good thing. So what I'm saying is, people should have in their minds, they should know what they're gonna get out of Arabic. They shouldn't be deceived by like a lot. I don't want to kind of make this kind of like into something which is kind of like criticizing other courses. But what I'm saying is, a lot of places, they don't tell the student what they're gonna get out of it. Like, it's not mapped out for them, and they're just paying for courses. And the results, I've seen a lot of people that have kind of like come to me and said to me, Sheikh, look, I've been studying 5 years Arabic, right? Can I start again with you? And I'm thinking, Ya Allah, 5 years you studied Arabic and you want to start all over again. Imagine you're doing 5 years medicine. Yeah, and you go to another university and say, can I start all over again? Doesn't even make sense.
Zach, before we do move on to the question, just a quick question for you, bro. I know you're developing something. I know it's pretty hush-hush at the moment. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what you're trying to do at the moment? And what we can expect?
So what I'll speak about is, so I've got like strong views on the whole Maktab thing and the way the Maktab system is sort of being run right now. There's no other community I can think of where they have their kids for like 8 to 10 hours every single week for about 5 years. Like, nobody else does that. It's only really the Muslim community that has that benefit. And the fact that our kids are coming out and they have no Arabic whatsoever, in probably less than a year or two, exposure in the actual maktabs, or in the maktabs, yeah. So, if you think in a school, if they were to do GCSE Arabic over 2 years and then do something like A level, these are very, like, A level Arabic is quite at a decent level. So the point being is, it's not about time, and it's not. I think it goes back around to the curriculums aren't developed properly. Nobody's really thinking about what they're doing. It's about funding. It's about money. It's about pay. And it's about getting the right people in. It's all of these things. So definitely somebody needs to develop something.
I think
watch this space.
So, I think if you go up north, there's a school which is ironically called Abu Hanifa Foundation, right? Ironic because I don't think the Hanafis. But in terms of
is that Hanafis say this really in Persian?
Damiel, is that Mullah Damiel's?
Yeah, Mullah Imtiaz.
Yeah.
And I think what they've done is that they've managed to redesign a maktab from the ground up in terms of class sizes, subject lesson, subject matter as well. So like they will do Arabic, Islamic studies, and Quranic studies. The Quran studies will be 1:5, a ratio between students to teachers. The Arabic will be at a similar number, and so will the Islamic studies. The Islamic studies is a bigger class, sorry. And what they do is that everybody has 3 lessons every day, and they go from from day dot, they follow those 3 lessons all the way through the whole madrasa system. But it's
Have they replaced this teacher?
Yeah,
Sorry, carry on.
it's with the stick in it. So I think that one was something that I saw that was quite different, and I visited it with a few scholars, and we just looked at it and just thought, you know what, this is an attempt to do something differently. But the other thing, like, and one of the questions I was going to ask before was, when it comes to teaching Arabic, do you think the method of teaching is, what do you think is the ideal method of teaching Arabic in terms of, I know you've touched on it, Brother Zakariya, in terms of, like, you know, that more flexible, almost forced, where you're forcing yourself to, I can't remember what the word is in terms of immerse yourself. Yeah, so you're kind of like creating your own immersion or immersive environment.
I think that's
What do you guys think is
the important thing on that point is that you can create your own immersion. You don't have to be abroad. Yeah, and on that point, because I don't want people to think that you'll go abroad. Look, if you're a rubbish student here, you're going to be a rubbish student in Cairo. It's as simple as that. No, it's true.
Yeah.
If you don't get yourself into good habits,
Is that why,
you're
Naveed, you
taking
didn't go
advantage
abroad?
of the scholars here. It's the same thing out there.
Sorry, Mufti, what was that? Sorry?
Is that why you didn't go abroad, Naveed?
It's a waste of ticket. We spent that same money on fried chicken.
Yeah, we got £300
question,
worth, £300 worth of return ticket worth of fried chicken.
You went to
Do you have any
the lady
questions,
promoting, I buy one get one free as well.
We're on a funky timetable, as a lot of people know. So let's try and get the questions out of the way and then we can wrap up, inshallah.
Yeah, so Zakariya, what are you saying?
So you know this thing about the best way to teach, or the ideal way to teach. I think that's a separate podcast. There's a lot to be said on that.
Inshallah.
So you're saying that there needs to be some sort of like a training. Are you saying there needs to be a training, or are you saying not everyone can teach the language?
So it depends on what the focus is and what you're trying to teach. I'll say just one thing. The way that we teach in the madaris and the way that we teach in the maktabs is because people don't know how to teach and they're not trained how to teach. So think about it.
Toba.
No, I'll tell you why. Think about it. It takes zero.
We're going to cut this podcast off at this moment in time, so we do not get any reputations going forward. I'm sorry, bad internet access.
We'll end on this bombshell. Mufti now gets the camera's gone off. Disassociating himself.
Have you seen that school teacher who said his student would always have the statement reconnecting?
Yeah.
So what he done was change his name to reconnecting.
These guys have withdrawn their sponsorship, by the way.
It was the same.
Oh my God.
To the Staji, and I have about 2 minutes with him. Why? Because the Staji hasn't got a clue about planning a lesson and taking into account differentiation in the lesson and controlling the class and keeping people engaged. Like, none of this is, like, they don't have the know-how to be able to do this. So you fall into this thing where you're doing the easy thing, which is everyone sit down, be quiet, and just one of you come up one at a time. And another thing is, even when you look at the way that Arabic is taught, and it goes back, we can touch on it maybe another time, is what's followed is essentially the grammar translation method. The grammar translation method is, or the translation method when you're learning is, oh, okay, you read a sentence, translate it. Next guy, you read a sentence, translate it. Next guy, you read a sentence, translate it. You need zero training for that. You need zero knowledge about how language pedagogy works. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation where that's what we're satisfied with. Not because, like, that's what we think is the best. It's what we're equipped to do with the current kind of task force that we have out there, unfortunately.
COVID-19 task force.
I like how you snuck that one in there.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so let's check out some questions then. And then we can wrap it up, inshallah. So, I mean, I think the main thing that I really wanted to kind of like, the reason I think that I or maybe us guys wanted to do this kind of podcast was not so that we can go into all the kind of issues regarding teaching Arabic, right, in the West. But I think it was more makes awareness, create awareness in our society. Yeah, create awareness in society. And that's something which, like, for example, for us nowadays, you know, because I'm responsible for so far, you know, things like the Nazim Ta'limat, Director of Studies. I have to kind of like make decisions regarding how certain books, who's going to teach certain books, how they're going to be taught, how much do you have to cover, And this is why, consulting with people like Zakariya and other people who are involved in teaching Arabic or even education, I think it's very important for madrasas and maktabs to really kind of maybe invest in that. So we can have, like, just like we invest in maybe teachers, we also invest on the side in people that can make us, syllabize. And we have it around the country. We have various institutes who, alhamdulillah, are putting a lot of effort into trying to create the best Arabic. Like Bayina. I don't know if you guys have seen like Bayina Institute, their Bayina Dream, right? The kind of some really good stuff, like really innovative, creative kind of ways of teaching Arabic. I knew a few people that had actually gone and studied there, and the Arabic was quite good. It was like, you kind of in a non Islamic environment, you're learning as a non-Islamic country. I knew a guy, and then we go into questions now. He came to study with me usul, yeah. The guy's Arabic was okay, really good. It wasn't really good, but it was good enough to read. You know how the guy learnt? He goes, have you heard of Sheikh Rizwan from Scotland? Yeah, Sheikh Rizwan, yeah.
I-syllabus.
So he said, I spoke to Sheikh Rizwan. He goes, I want to study. Where should I go? So he told him, go to that chateau in France. Yeah, I don't know if it was IS something or IC something. I don't remember what it's called. So he goes, I went there, and he goes, the studies weren't that great. So I said to Sheikh, what should I do? He goes, watch cartoons all day. So he goes, 8 hours a day I used to watch Arabic cartoons. Just Arabic cartoons. The first month or so, I couldn't understand anything. He goes, then it started to come in, absorb. He goes, I used to just attend a few of the lessons, right, just to stay, on the register. And the rest, I used to just, in my room, just watch cartoons, And he goes, I did that for so long. And he goes, I learned more Arabic watching the cartoons than I did in the classes. So, like Zakariya was saying, it's all about that kind of, like, you're putting your own sort of, like, kind of effort into trying understanding it yourself. All right, let's check out some questions. So anybody got any questions?
Understanding how you learn as well.
Sorry?
Is there like a fixed way of learning? Because people learn in different ways, right?
I personally have seen, some people, like, if I was to grade students, I would say there's 3 types of people out there in learning anything. Number one is like the real eager ones. Wherever you put them, wherever you throw them, they're going to come out as leaders, right? In any sort of area you put them, these guys are going to come out like, the 8-star students. They'll always come out like that. Then you got this other category who need guidance, who need like a bit of support, and then the rest of it they can go in their own way. And then you got the majority of people, they need, when they learn Arabic, they need like an IKEA method, IKEA step by step. Or you just tell them, do this, write this, and learn this, do this, right? And by the time they've kind of like gone through a certain number of steps, they themselves start to understand how the language works, and then they can go. And have you seen on my YouTube channel, Roots of Knowledge? On there, I've made this learning the Arabic alphabet, the Quran. Yeah, learn how to read the Quran. Yeah, go on there when you're free and check it out. So I learned this method because I was thinking to myself, there has to be an easy way. If Gore, I always say this to myself, if Gore got hold of this science, what would they make of it? Like, after 10, 15 years of studies, what would they make of this science? So I searched what's the best way to learn a language, and I found Jews, right? The Jews had actually cracked this. So there was a Jewish guy online, and he's actually made this kind of like 10 lessons or 20 lessons where you can actually read all of Hebrew if you follow them. They're like 5-minute clips. So I said to myself, this guy, he's done it with Hebrew, I'll try with Arabic. So I did it with Arabic, and I did 25 lessons. And alhamdulillah, every day I get people saying to me for the first time in their entire life, they've learned how to read the Quran. Yeah, like people in their 50s, 60s, people, the young kids and families saying to me, we sit together and we learn Quran together. So I think there's always a way to teach. The thing is that we have to kind of understand our society, how they think, and then come out with like innovative ways. Maybe we can have another podcast to kind of like talk about these kind of details.
This is a deep subject. I don't think we've covered everything that we probably wanted to cover, and I definitely think that would be a good idea, Mufti. So, part 2 of this, inshallah. And maybe we'll have a few more structured questions in detail.
Yeah, and maybe we can ask Zakariya how he makes pakoras.
No, Zach makes really nice coffee, mashallah.
That's called Costa.
It's an espresso pod, so there's not much
Oh yes,
that goes into
it.
Pod? Oh, sorry.
Okay, so let's check out some questions here. So you got any questions on Facebook?
No, nothing I can see at the moment.
Okay, I just
Somebody's asking, why is Abdul Hay Sallu not been on one of these podcasts?
Did Abdul Hay Sallu ask that question?
so
He
when,
tagged himself in as well.
when we come
I liked it.
when we do the podcast on the virtues of Wasal, then we can bring him on.
It'll be a short podcast though, isn't it?
One thing, one of my friends here on Facebook, his name is Shiflu Mia, he wrote something, I just found it so funny. And he goes, the eighth wonder of the world is when people write a status and like it themselves.
Oh, you know what I like? You know what? Why I read and I have a giggle. You know when people write an English statement in Arabic and then they say Subhanallah. It's like an English statement. It's written in Arabic. Like, you know, something like, you know, whatever they say is your life. So they have it like in Arabic. Like, مهما يقولون فهو حياتك. And then put like a heart there.
For no reason.
Subhanallah. This is like so powerful.
That comic, Joe Lysa, the one from Birmingham. He has that on Instagram, where he trolls people who do these like random quotes that mean absolutely nothing. Just put a quote up with a picture, and it's like one of those really airy fairy. Oh yeah, what happens in life? He picked one in it.
Rumi is like Rumi 2.0.
And 4 + 1 is 5. Chart your own path. And he just rips those apart. He's like, what the heck does this even mean?
Okay, so you got some
questions on YouTube, Mufti.
So brother Zakariya is right. I think it has to be said. Teachers are not trained. Cam Mug is saying, mashallah, very interesting, thought-provoking points. Cam, one day you got to bring you on, bro. Although you have come on once.
Quick appearance.
I know.
The other day, he was just waving.
Hassan is saying, Attati tuna. We all know that joke. Bizk is saying, I've had a few different Arabic teachers and I really just feel like a big part of it's just finding the right teacher. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Finding the right teacher. As we're all different types of learners, you can flourish with some or burn out. Yeah, I totally agree. S. Khan, in fact, the famous Imam Sibawayh, you know how he got into Arabic, they say. What happened was he went to study hadith by, I think it was Hammad or someone, and he read the hadith wrong. He read the hadith, man ra'ifa, supposed to ra'ufa, or ra'afa. And the teacher got so angry at him, told him off. He didn't come back to the dars after that. And he went to study grammar from then on. Yeah, and he became an imam in grammar. So, fun fact.
Reputations do work.
Okay, S. Khan is saying, what is everyone's perspectives on Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, Arabiya Bain? Maybe next time, Zakariya, you can touch on those.
Yeah.
What tips would you recommend? Just out of curiosity, which is there any of those that you think are really good, are worth kind of investing in?
So those there's good supplementary things. You're not going to learn the language from those things, I don't think. Not. Again, it depends on the purpose, isn't it? If it's Quran and Islamic studies, that's what you want to do. Rosetta Stone and these kind of things, you'll be able to go to a grocery shop and order some apples and order stuff at a restaurant. If that's what you want to do with the language, I say when it comes to these spoken things, you can pick up a phrase book and just memorize it. Like if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that's not proper language, right?
Okay, you got Imran. What
He
tips?
and Yani come in like 452 times in each one of those phrase books.
Yeah.
As long as you say Yani properly and you can say Aki properly, innit?
Brother, there's 6 words you need to learn, to sound like you know what you're talking about. Akhi, Daif, Yani, Na'am. I think there's another 2 that I can't remember from the top of my head.
When I started practicing, what I used to do? I used to listen to scholars. And the Arabic, I used to write the Arabic they say. I used to try to write it down like in English. And I used to try to learn that.
Inna alhamdulillah, Nahma.
Okay, Imran saying, what tips would you recommend if you want to focus speaking only to start with, especially if you don't have many people around you practicing? So I think Zakariya answered it, didn't you?
If you want to focus on speaking only, you need to fix up and sort your intentions out.
That was a bit straight to the face, man.
Somebody's going to write in one of our comments in the podcast, I came on here thinking about learning Arabic and getting closer to the deen, and now I've just gone back and just reading my Harry Potter book.
In Arabic. Harry Potter in Arabic. Might be good.
I was gonna show him that ideal book to read. Where's it gone? There it is.
Mufti Ibn Adams. Okay.
Upside down.
Okay. Uluka Patta is saying it's not the purpose.
Well, what was he saying?
He's saying
MashaAllah. Full of wisdom.
it's not the purpose of our Maktab system to teach Arabic language anyway, so I don't know why we are trying to fix it.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't catch the first bit.
He's basically saying that Maktab's not broken, so why fix it?
Maktabs. Which maktab is this, bro?
Like what? We don't
Let me know
we
where
don't
it
need
is.
to teach Arabic.
Depends what you're trying to achieve, and if you're trying to achieve little, then it's not broken, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Maktab system is another thing that we need to have a discussion on, like a full
Yeah.
proper bring maybe a few people in from different Maktabs, and maybe we can have full discussion about the real situation, because I know there are very, very big problems in. I mean, there's a few Maktabs, are ideal Maktabs out there, mashallah, right, who are kind of like, paving the way for others, but there's so many still, like, problems that Maktabs are suffering from, and either it's because they don't want to change the ways. It's like an Indian subcontinent method that's been brought over, right? It's not from Munazzal min as-sama, and people assume it to be like after the Quran and Sunnah is the Indian subcontinent Maktab method of teaching.
I think it's just like a club that my kids go to, and hopefully they enjoy their interaction there, and they gain a love for the religion. I don't put any more emphasis on it, Musab, than that, to be honest, as a parent. Because I think it gets over the top when
Why have such low expectations when your kids are there for so long during the week?
I just is babysitting, to be honest.
Cheap
Yeah,
babysitting.
that's what a lot of people think.
No, I'm saying that's what it is, and being in that environment when you're not in that environment makes a difference. I'm not expecting anything. I went through the madrasa system. I can't remember half the things I learned. And I had like reams of papers of like stuff that we went through in a methodical way. I was like, yeah, okay, great. Like, I went through 14, 15 different books. And I learned this, I learned that. I was like, if you ask me questions about those things now, I don't think they're relevant. Like, I don't remember them. So it's like trigonometry, right? It's like me and like I don't use
it
anyway.
We use it every day to try and put this thing on.
I'm gonna get refuted somewhere by Musab. Honestly, so I'm just gonna just clip that part of the podcast and send it out on my
Zach
list.
said something interesting earlier. You said that he was talking about the Maktab system. You're saying that the Ustadji listens to like the sabak for like 2 minutes per student. I was like, that must have been, like,
I think that is the there's a lot stronger on Maktab. I don't want to kind of go into it now, but that is one of the biggest problems, that we don't see that being a problem. Yeah. If you're sending your kid 2 hours a day and he's only going to read to the Ustadji for 5 minutes max.
I'm sorry, Mufti Saab. I wanted to say that it's not even one student that happens with. It's like that 2 minutes is actually spread between 4 students. So apparently the Ustadji can listen to 4 different types of sabak at the same time. So fantastic.
Anyway, I think we should wrap it up there. So anything, add last comments
on how you can learn Arabic and the best way to do it and go about things. Hopefully nobody feels like downhearted after this conversation. I think this was just a bit of a reality check. Yeah, so the reality check is important because it forces people hopefully to up their game. So that's the point.
So okay, what to tell me this then? What would you say the status of Arabic should be in the eyes of the public? Like, what should they aim for if they want to study Arabic? As in, what should be the basic sort of like understanding of Arabic they should have?
So I think the main thing is just being able to engage with Quran. That's really the main thing. In terms of your average person and engaging with the Islamic sciences and things like that, it's not necessary. It's just mainly for the Quran. But even then, I don't know. I feel like my attitude towards that is kind of developing, and I'm kind of moving away from the whole everyone needs to know Arabic thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Undecided, to be confirmed.
Alhamdulillah.
Reconnecting.
Roots of knowledge just lost 50 subscribers. 60 subscribers. Oh, sorry, 100 subscribers just gone.
Allah. All right, guys. Jazakallah khair, guys. Thank you very much. And as your YouTube subscribers and Facebook viewers, Jazakallah khair for watching. The whole point of these podcasts is not to kind of impose any sort of like view that we have. Obviously, that's not. It's just to talk about open. And if you disagree with us, alhamdulillah, you know,
You
you're
can
welcome to
follow
disagree.
incorrect views if you want, or you can just listen to what we have to say.
Where's that book where that says, I may be wrong, but I doubt it? Yeah.
I could agree with you, but then both of us would be wrong.
So yeah, so you know, so take it with a pinch of salt sometimes, and you know, at the end of the day, we do want, you know, for the better of the ummah as well. That's the kind of thing that we always try to look for as well. So jazakallah khair, guys. Remember saying your du'as. Hopefully, inshallah, see you guys on Thursday, inshallah, and we'll let you know what the topic is on Thursday and who the guest will be, if there is a guest, inshallah.
If our Facebook page hasn't been closed down by a group of refuters and our YouTube channel reporting or something.
Who haven't we upset during this thing? Up to parent teachers and
Alhamdulillah. We touched on everyone, I think. We've got everyone.
This one might be a good one, not
we
to
don't
say.
discriminate.
We want to keep this one on.
And guys,
I
if you
think
have
somebody-
if you haven't hit the like button, you know what to do, guys. Hit the like button if you like the if you like the podcast.
And if you haven't joined the growing group of people who don't,
Tell them I have to unsubscribe because I know a lot of them are wondering how.
you unsubscribe by subscribing.
And then sharing it on your WhatsApps. Sharing
You
it on your
guys on
WhatsApps.
Thursday, inshallah.
All right, guys.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.